In this video, we're going to be looking at transformations of graphs. There are three different transformations we're going to be looking at. In this first video, we're going to be looking at shifts of a graph. So we're going to start off with one of our elementary functions, f of x equals the absolute value of x. In this transformation, we're going to move the graph up, down, right, or left, depending on where the value is placed in the function. So in this case, I've placed the values in different places of the function. Here I've put it on the outside of the absolute value, and here I've placed it on the inside of the absolute value. Now, graphing your absolute value on your calculator, that would be found under the math button. So if we were going to actually graph the absolute value, push y equals, but you'd have to find the absolute value under the math key. So we'd go there, and it's actually under the number menu. If you went over there, there it is right here, number 1, absolute value. You could push 1 and it would put the absolute value. If we just wanted to graph the absolute value of x, this is how we would type it in the calculator. And if we set our window to something similar to this one, that would be -8 to +8 and -8 to +8. This is what our graph would look like. I'm hoping this matches the blue graph that we have here. It's the absolute value. So this function right here is the absolute value of x. Right here, absolute value of x. That's what this graph tells you, the absolute value of x. And we can see on the screen over here that we have a similar graph here. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at the changes or transformations that happen when we do this. Now, in this case, we're going to take every value of the absolute value x and subtract 2 from them. So we're going to shift this value 0 down 2 units. So it's going to actually start here. If we were at 0, we would be at -2. If we were at 1, we would shift down to -1 because we subtract 2 units. This graph right here shifts the function down 2 units because of the -2 on the outside. So it would look similar in that, let me just take my graph and move it down 2 units. So it would be right here. So this would be my new graph, down 2 units. It would look like this. So this would be the red graph that we have here. This would be this graph right here. Went down 2 units. Now this +3, that just shifts everything up 3 units. So it would take this whole graph, this blue graph, and go add 3 units to every y value. It would move it up 3 units on the graph. So it would take the graph here and move the graph three units up from 0, 0. So it's not wanting to move. Here we go. 3 units. So it starts here, moves 1, 2, 3 units up. It would be right here on the graph. Let's change its color and use green. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this item to change colors. There we go. So that green graph would be this function right here. we've moved up 3 units. So if we want to do this on the graphing calculator, what we would do is we'd type it in the same way. We could see that we have the absolute value here. If we wanted the absolute value of x minus 2, we'd do the same thing. We hit math, move over to number, hit number 1 to get absolute value of x, end the parentheses and subtract 2. And if we push the graph here, we will see one similar to the red graph over here. And then if we did the same thing, but hit a positive 3, so we would hit math, move over, hit number 1, and hit a plus 3. We would then graph something that's 3 units up from the previous graph. So you can see these 3 graphs. So positive 3 on the outside goes up 3 units. Negative 2 moves it down 2 units. Now these last two, they're going to do something different. And in this case, it's going to move it right or left, depending on what these values are. So let's just try a couple values here and see what happens. So if I put in 4, so let's try this graph here. We're going to make it in black. So if I put 0 in there, we go 0 minus 4, so that's negative 4. And then we take the absolute value. 0 is going to go to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where that would be at 4. If we were to put 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Absolute value is 3, so it would go here at 3. 2 minus 4 is 2, negative 2. Negative 2, absolute value is positive 2. So we'd have that value there. 3 would give us negative 1, which the absolute value is positive 1, and 4 would give us 0. 5 would give you 5 minus 4, which is 1. So it would look, the V actually moves over this direction to the right, which is the opposite way of what we would think. This minus sign in here, we would think that it would move us to the left because this is negative, but inside it does the opposite of what we think. Outside it does what we think. So when it's on the outside, the absolute value, minus 2 would move down. Positive 3 moves up. But inside the parentheses, or inside the absolute value, inside the function itself, it's going to move it in the opposite direction. So this absolute value is actually going to go here, and it's going to be moved right 4 units. So this one's right 4 units instead of left 4 units. So in this case, it's going to move right 4 units. Okay, so that's what this does. Okay, so if we had a positive 5, it's going to move it the other direction. It's going to be negative. It's going to be over here in this range, so we're going to move left 5 units there. So in this case, this one's going to move left 5 units. Okay, let's pick. So in this case, if we put this in this pink dotted graph, it's going to be over here at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to go this way and this way, and the same values. It's just going to be moved over left 5 units. And we can verify that on our graphing calculator. Let's turn these off. We're not going to erase them, but we'll turn them off. To turn them off, you move the cursor to the equal sign, hit enter so it's unhighlighted. We're going to turn those off so they don't show up on the graph. And then we're going to graph the absolute value of x minus 4, looking at our thing here with math. Move over, hit 1. In this case, you're going to do x minus 4 inside the parentheses, so the minus 4 is inside. So we push graph. This should be on the right hand side of this graph. So as you can see here, it's over 4 units to the right. And the opposite thing happens when it's plus. So absolute value of x plus 5 is going to move it left 5 units. There it is right there. And we can see that same graph here. So that's a summary of what transformations do to a graph. Moves it right, left, up, and down depending on what values are, how they're placed in the function.